finite resource you have is time. I think the only other finite resource you have is your like willingness to work hard.
Yeah.
You have to want to do it. It has to be like, I am stoked to get up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. or whatever ungodly
100%.
hour because I want to work on this problem. Your culture is who you hire, who you fire, and who you promote.
Yep.
Those are like the only levers you actually have.
Yep.
Because if you get 200, 300,000 people deep and you didn't imbue the cultural principles that you believe in, both from how you act and how you treat people, it doesn't actually take hold within an organization.
This is All Quiet on the Second Front, a podcast where boring conversations around defense tech and national security come to die. Join me, Tyler Sweatt, and my Second Front homies as we dismantle the mundane and cut through the bureaucratic bullshit to demystify the world of defense tech. But be warned, this is not a typical government podcast. Are you ready to get weird? What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Tyler Sweatt. Welcome to another episode of All Quiet on the Second Front, the podcast where boring defense talk comes to die. Really excited to not have a boring conversation today with good friend Scott Sanders from Forterra. First, thanks for coming by, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Really excited to dig in, not just some of the cool work that you guys are doing at Forterra, sort of how you are building and transforming the organization, but just your impressive career as well. So, start to open up, let everybody know kind of who are you, what's your story, what are you working on now?
Yeah, so I'm Scott Sanders, obviously. Thanks for the introduction. I started my career as a Marine. I guess we all make bad life choices coming out of college sometimes, as you did as well.
Yep.
Got really lucky and got introduced to Anduril when I was getting out of MARSOC in 2017 and joined as an early employee and had an awesome run getting to work on a lot of the early projects and deploying technology with end users. And when I first left the Marine Corps, I swore I would never, ever work in the defense industry ever again.
Yep.
That dream clearly did not come true.
Yeah, swing and a miss.
Here we are.
Yeah.
But I think I came back to it and fell in love with it for the same reason that most of us joined the military. It's like, it's a really cool mission. There's really cool people that work on it. And I think that's one of the things that makes Forterra and a lot of the defense tech companies really interesting, because it's a lot of veterans going after this problem because they live these problems firsthand and they actually want to come back and make an outsized impact in the space, and probably more so than they could if they're still on active duty in a lot of cases. Just because it's
Be the different freedom of maneuver, right? You've got
like,
levers you didn't have access to in the service, so you can now pull on.
Yeah, you don't have rank insignia on your collar or on your shoulders anymore. It's like no one can yell at you for like talking to the wrong person. Yeah. It's like a really novel concept. Like, I just want to go solve this problem. Who can I talk to? Who wants to work on this problem? So, at Forterra, we build autonomous ground systems, not just self-driving vehicles, but things that connect those vehicles to everything else, whether it's weapon systems, communication networks, other assets in the space, because we believe that at the end of the day, we love ground armies so much here in the United States that we have basically 3 of them. And despite how cool airborne drones are, and I legitimately do think they are awesome, at the end of the day, someone's got to take a trench. And if robots can do that, if robots can breach the way into someone's defended position, that's a hell of a lot better answer than a bunch of Marines or soldiers grabbing Bangalores, because I think we still use those. Flashback to World War II, to blow up in a breach lane, or to put a big, expensive $25 to $60 million vehicle into that lane and blow it up. So we're focused on this part of the space, and we have an insanely talented group of engineers, operations people, growth folks, and a lot of them with defense backgrounds. We have way too many Marines. We have a diversity problem, and it's real. We need to hire some Navy folks at some point. I think we got one. Yeah.
Well, talk to me. You see the parallel between sort of a mission-focused organizations and, one, just how fulfilling I think that is for a lot of us, right? You're getting after hard problems that matter with people that are passionate. I think one of the challenges is how do you continue to sort of build and reinforce tier 1 teams,
right? So much of that comes into not just setting and sort of defining kind of cultural first principles, but thinking about, what we'd call back in the day like assessment and selection, right? Like you go through a pipeline, you get the opportunity to be part of a team like that. How do you bring some of that background in service and, from your experience, either Anduril and Forterra, into how you guys are building the team, the human side of it? Because the hardware, the software, all of the cool tech isn't possible without the right humans getting at it. So how do you guys go at that problem?
We come at it a couple different ways. One is that we try to hire, we'll start from a different position. We think about culture not as like a PowerPoint deck or an all-hands Slack message or, the boisterous CEO stand up in front of his team and saying words, which I'm sure is not a thing that ever happens at Second
Front.
Me. But like your culture is who you hire, who you fire, and who you promote.
Yep.
Those are like the only levers you actually have.
Yep.
Because if you get 200, 300,000 people deep and you didn't imbue the cultural principles that you believe in, both from how you act and how you treat people, it doesn't actually take hold within an organization. And I think we all saw this in the soft community. You definitely saw this in the general purpose force. As a young officer, like those are the things that matter because everyone sees it. It's like, okay, why is so-and-so getting promoted or why does so-and-so have a title if they're not, doing the thing that we expect everyone to do? And that means like I ride in the middle seat of a Delta flight quite often because we have a really strong stance on corporate travel. Because if you don't control it early on, it gets out of hand really fast.
Yep.
So from a cultural perspective, especially people that we're hiring sort of outside of our immediate network, because I want to think in-network hiring is super important. When we select like mission operations leads, one of the key things they have to go through as a part of their interview process is an unstructured problem that has no right answer. And it's not some weird McKinsey, like, how many gerbils.
Ping pong balls can fit in an airplane.
I was going to go with a Twitter reference from today, which is, how many gerbils fit in the Capitol Rotunda. And
that's a new one.
That's a new one. Yeah, I think it's an Elon thing. I'm big on Twitter these days. I have a whole 103 followers. So
hey, we're gonna pump those numbers up.
Get to 110. But we give someone an unstructured problem that's like operationally relevant. Like, here's your assets. Here's the kind of conditions. It's on less than one page. We don't tell you how to respond to it. We don't tell you if you should make a video or if you should write a memo. We want to see how you creatively solve problems. And it seems like a very easy thing to come up with. But I think people overthink this and they try to put too much rigor and structure on how you're selecting for it. Because what you're looking for, the size of company that we're at, you're looking for someone who's really comfortable not knowing all the answers. Like there's so many variables when you're trying to build in this space that is like impossible to find someone who's going to have domain expertise in 2 of them, let alone 10 of them. So you're looking for people who can, much like soft selection, take all their instructions from the whiteboard, realize when they ask questions, you're just going to have the whiteboard read back to you. And you're like, all right, I guess this is what we're going off of. And go figure it out and work with their teammates and be able to work across distributed teams because it's, once you start putting engineers and your growth team into the field, no one's ever in the same place all at once. It's like extremely hard to get everyone in one room and just have a conversation.
It's damn near impossible.
It is basically impossible. And so you have to find people that are, good at communicating, good at solving problems. And if you're indexed on trying to make everyone happy and feel like warm and supported all the time, like you're just going to objectively fail. And so it's about managing, personalities, because you're going to have a lot of personalities. You guys don't have any personalities.
None.
Front. No. TJ, we're talking about you in case you're listening to this. But
how do you, on that though, right? Like I think is the challenge of, how do we get folks together, and there's like a reinforcing the culture and the team dynamics challenge. There's the also, as you're going through that sort of like hiring and that assessment process, that takes time, right? Time is probably the only finite resource that the company, like in theory, you can go raise more money. You can find ways to do all that. You cannot, shit out an extra day a week. How do you ensure folks aren't sacrificing quality on that assessment as they're doing that answer because of like the proximate pain of growth? And right, like success breeds more work, more growth, more stress. There's the 3-10 rule, right? Every time you triple the size of something, kind of everything breaks. So that makes hiring right and hiring fast both something that feels like a priority one for people.
Yep.
But if you kind of toggle that wrong on equilibrium, the negative compounding effect of that is near fatal.
I mean, I'll steal a Matt Steckmanism, which was like, he used to say that if you were batting 500 as a hiring manager, like, you've made it.
Yeah.
Like, if you're right half the time,
Yeah.
you've made it. You just need to know when it's not working, and be able to resolve it from there. Maybe the person needs to be on a different team. Maybe there's just not the right cultural fit. I think even that's hard. Like, if you have that kind of turnover on some of these teams in this space, given how the complexities of the customer and the complexities of just selling to the DoDs, super hard. Hiring robotics engineers, super hard.
Yeah.
That's like a lot of negative cycles that are hard to recover from. And so I don't think you can hire at a really high batting average and really fast. And so our logic on this at Forterra was, let's make sure we get the right people into key leadership positions first. Even if that person may have less experience than someone else in the industry, or maybe they're deficient in some other skill set, but they are the example of like type of person that we want to work with. And then we index super heavily on, we called it the deployment test back in the day, but like, would I want to go to Syria with this person for 6 months? And it's the only other human I'm going with.
It's the old airport bar test. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I got stuck in a layover sitting next to this person at an airport bar, could they have an interesting conversation? Would I want to hang out with them?
Yeah, and it seems like kind of this abstract, weird, bro-y vibes test thing, but it's really not. Like, if you want to pick up the call at 10 p.m. because someone on your team is calling you, it's a very different reaction and quality of life than, it's, Steve again. We don't have anyone on our team named Steve, so I'll use Steve.
We'll use Steve.
Yes, Steve. And like, it's Steve again. I don't want to take this call. You talk about the only finite resource you have is time. I think the only other finite resource you have is your like willingness to work hard.
Yeah.
Because it gets to be a grind. Like, this is going to sound super depressing. So if you're thinking about starting a defense tech company, don't listen to this podcast. But you have to want to do it. It has to be like, I am stoked to get up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. or whatever ungodly
100%.
hour because I want to work on this problem.
I tell people all the time, I'm like, I shoot out of bed at 4. I'm like, great, it's another chance to go hammer the problem.
Actually, it's like roll out of bed because like we have a weird angle.
If I roll, it's like a beached whale there, so I got to shoot out. I got to use the spring.
Yeah, it's like, and then you also, I think it's like, I definitely burned myself out my first job out of the Marine Corps. Yeah. Like, I worked way too many hours and didn't take any real time for myself. And I still have this problem of like, I will go into like a work hole that is like, I just have to get through this to-do list because that will make me feel better. And it's about figuring out what is the thing I can do every day for an hour to like reset my brain, whether that's a workout or hanging out with my girlfriend or, doing something meaningful that's not about work, but knowing how to box it in so that you can then like recharge to go on. I don't know how we got on this tangent, but it seems interesting, so we'll keep going.
No, it's good. But it is. But even the taking time away from work, I find it allows me, whether to your point, whether it's a hammer to workout in the morning or, go shoot hoops with my 14-year-old, I find I have more clarity thinking about work after that than if I just gone on like a 20-hour bender trying to go down a rabbit hole and solve like some specific problem. If I put it down and walk away and go do something that's like emotionally, physically fulfilling, I come back better. It's just hard to teach yourself that like the way to solve the problem is to put it down.
Yeah, because then you feel guilty.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, like, you're like, I'm going to put down this spreadsheet or this whatever I was working on, and I'm gonna go do something for myself. There's like this weird,
A huge guilt.
I blame my Catholic upbringing for this, but I assume that applies other places as well. Of like,
I'm letting the team down if I'm not solving this.
Yeah, I think former military leaders have a problem with this too. It's like armory check-in is a good example for those who've served, right? You as the OIC are probably not doing anything.
Yep.
But all your dudes are like hanging out, waiting to turn in their stupid rifle,
Yep.
and for some reason this process takes 4 hours.
Yep.
It is unclear to me why, but it does.
No one's ever explained to me
No
why.
one,
Yep.
no one knows.
Numbers are stamped on the side. Shouldn't be that hard.
We piloted this thing when I was at IOC as a young Marine officer that like they would scan it in. Somehow that made it like 5 times longer, and we just stopped doing it. Like I don't understand. So, but you would sit there, right? And so like I have a problem with this. Like if I know people are grinding on something over a weekend or at night, I feel like I should like just be hanging out in the Zoom call. Like, you guys need anything?
Yeah.
And
Used
it's
to
like
bring pizza to the barracks, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like the totally wrong mindset. And I think you have to throttle that, and you have to know when like the people on your team are like overcycling,
Yeah.
and be able to step in and be like, hey, is there something I can take off your plate? And also feel comfortable like dropping stuff off your plate. Like I definitely have a problem with this. Like, oh, I should push this down to somebody else, but they've got all this work going on. They're going on this deployment. I know he's been away from home for 6 months or 2 weeks or whatever the number is. And it's like just a really hard balancing act. So it goes back to like who you hire. Like you have to focus on less of the, at least at the, I think at the earlier stage, like it's less about, does this person know the entire ins and outs of the, appropriation cycle on the Hill? Like you can, in theory, go learn that. Yeah. A bill went to Congress. Like there's a whole cartoon about it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's super.
Bill becomes law.
Yeah. Or like, does this person know all the inner workings of the Pentagon? Like, you're going to need those people because there's some things you're just actually not going to be able to go solve by just running into a brick wall every day. But focusing on those intrinsic skills, I think, is really important. And then going back to like, do you want to work with them? Yeah. And that makes, I think, to me, like hiring slow, you kind of have to go slow before you can go fast.
Yeah. Another old militarism.
Another old militarism. No one listens to it, by the way, in the military. Have you ever noticed that?
Nobody listens to it in the military.
Yeah. They're like,
it's
we're gonna
exactly
teach you.
right.
Yeah. Like, slow, smooth is fast. You're like, yeah, but you just yelled at me for like not going fast enough.
Yeah.
And I just learned this skill 6 seconds ago.
Yeah.
So what?
So when you take that, right, we talk about, building the right team and the right culture. I think the last leg of that is sort of how do you then start to empower those leaders, right? Because there's a bunch of folks that are listening that maybe are on the other side and are thinking about popping out, or maybe they're in school or in commercial industry and saying, hey, maybe I want to come over and be part of like a mission-focused organization. We have a whole slew of folks, tremendous folks at Second Front, no military, no government defense background, anything, and they're as passionate, more passionate than folks that come from a background. So I think there's this just awesome opportunity to sort of like blend those together. And part of it is, with a mission-focused organization, you've got to empower folks and you've got to let them go, grow, and lead and deliver. How do you guys do that? And what's your approach been there?
I mean, I definitely don't think we've solved this. And I think if anyone on my team is listening, they're probably going to be like, whatever I say, they're going to tell you I'm full of shit. So we'll fact check from the audience. It's like this careful balance of, like, we work across defense and commercial. Very different industries with shockingly similar sales cycles and problems.
Yep.
I was really hoping commercial be like super easy, and turns out it's just as hard. Like, they're big organizations, they have complicated buying processes. They're just as hard. There's no like real big difference besides the DoD has the FAR, right? Like that's the only thing that private industry really hasn't recreated. Yep. But some orgs have just as complicated buying processes. And so when it comes to empowering folks, like you have to be comfortable letting someone take like the 60% schwack at something. Yep. And letting them like not get it right, make course corrections. It's the only way they're going to learn. And it's the only way you're going to learn because like I definitely do not have all the answers.
Oh, God, no. Yeah.
Close. And so if you get stuck on something, like knowing how to work within the group to get to the right answer and not having some like, I was telling you about working on this pricing model at 4 a.m. It's like, all right, before I came over here, like shot it out to the group of people. It was like, please go pick this apart.
Yeah.
Because I am not confident in X, Y, and Z thing, and here are the trades I'm trying to make, but I only have 2 levers, and I wish I had 4.
Yep.
So, like, is this going to work for what you guys are trying to achieve on this specific program? But then it's also the balance of, I wish I could tell everyone everything that I was working on and, like, crowdsource it to the objectively smarter people that are on my team than me. But it takes more capacity to do that sometimes than is reasonable.
Yeah.
And so then you have these really smart, talented people who are like, well, why didn't I know about this thing? And I'm like, well, I actually just didn't have the cycles to, like, write you a long email.
Yeah.
And that's on me, but I'm going to have to make some trades here to be able to do it. And I think the follow-on to that when it comes to empowering people is it's bilateral trust of, like, you have to know that I'm operating, like, in the right direction, and I'm going to screw stuff up, or I'm going to forget to tell you about something.
And that's okay.
And that's just, like, the way it works.
Yeah.
And then, like, you go back to, like, the best advice I ever got from a company commander when I was in the Marine Corps was this guy, John Chavez, who's just was an incredible leader, super smart guy. And he had this thing about glass balls and rubber balls. And he was like, it's really easy to tell the difference when they're in your hand because you can see them. But if you're just throwing a bunch of stuff in the air, it's really hard. And you got to know which of those things you have to catch at the right time so that the glass ones don't drop and the rubber ones do. And knowing that it's okay, the rubber ball is going to bounce around in your room and go somewhere else, and you can find it later. So having that internal triage process is super critical because there's things that seem super important. Like, there are for sure things I did this morning that could have waited, or I could have just let run out into the rest of the room and, like, I'll
deal with it tomorrow.
Yeah, when I eventually decide to move the furniture in this room, I'll find this thing and, hey, you might realize that you should have picked that up a while ago.
Yeah.
That it's like, it's just hard trades you're trying to make. And so going back to hiring, it's like, can you hire and onboard and skill people up so they know what the important things are and what the important things aren't? And I think that's probably one of the most difficult things to learn because you don't know. You don't have perfect information.
Definitely one of the hardest. All right, last 2 questions. One, we talked a lot about building teams, sort of, empowering folks, understanding sort of the criticality of culture, drawing some back from, military background or mission focus. Sitting where you are now, what's one thing you wish you knew when you were taking off the uniform?
I only get one.
Yeah. Law of constraints.
Yeah. I mean, the easy one is I really wish I had understood how the VA process worked when I got out, or how, like,
everybody just did adhere here to that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, I really wish I knew how this worked. I think I wish I would have understood just how important, like, networking's the wrong word, but, like, this entire industry, and I think every industry, is a function not of, like, who you know, but who you trust and who's going to be not just, like, a mentor or a mentee down the road, but, like, a good partner to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah.
Because I found that to be the most useful thing in the world.
Really?
Like, you come across incredibly talented people, and you're like, I actually have no ask from you. I just like hearing your opinion on things. Yep. And I wish I would have kept a better notebook or log of, like, who I talked to when I was getting out, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Because I don't think you know this, like, I got out like 30 days after I denied orders to go into the East Coast when I was in the Marine Corps. I had zero plan. I got these, like, really crappy orders. I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a free person. I can go do whatever I want.
Yep.
Do I have a plan for this? Absolutely not. So I wish I would have understood that better, and I probably would have spent more time thinking about it than just all right, what am I going to do next?
Yeah. Yeah, there is magic in that sort of community, and I think everybody wants to help each other out and lift each other up, which is good. And you can just reach out and get real smart real quick with a bunch of great people. And it's not transactional, it's genuine.
Yeah. I probably, like, Maribeth, my EA, probably hates the volume of, like, 30-minute chats that I will do with some random vet who's getting out who hit me up on LinkedIn.
100%.
But the reason I do it is because I did it to so many people.
Same thing. You have to give it back.
You have to pay it back.
100%.
And I would have never ended up in any of this stuff.
I tell everybody that after I talk to them, hey, your job is you're doing this for the next guy or gal up.
Yes.
Whoever's coming out next, you help lead them through.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you're one of those people reaching out, please God, have an agenda. That'd be really helpful. Just know what you're asking would be cool. But if you're, it always, the transition, everyone talks about, transition's hard and, you're going from this very structured system to a very unstructured system. I don't think people appreciate just how daunting it is going from, it's one thing if you're in the Marine Corps or Army for 4 years, but if you're getting out at 10 years or 15 years or 20 years, you have no idea what the rest of the world looks like. And I think it's super important that there's the network of humans that are trying to figure out. And I think this also applies to non-veterans trying to get in the defense space.
Yep.
Because it's complicated.
Yeah, reach out, ask, have questions. It's great.
Yeah.
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 All right, last question, structured one, king for a day.
Oh,
Scott gets to change one thing.
Micro Costco's.
Yeah, talk to me about it.
I just feel like there's a huge business opportunity to have a smaller version of Costco. I get that doesn't fully work with their entire distribution center, warehouse structure.
Yeah, but you just have one that's only industrial sized mayonnaise, one that's only industrial sized pickles, or a little bit of everything.
I think you do it like the new IKEAs they have. So the new IKEAs are you can buy some things, but it's mostly I can go look at something and order it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff that I want to buy.
So it's just kind of like a showroom almost.
Showroom, and you can get some stuff, and for sure there's hot dogs.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah, it's
I've seen online the thing is the pizza and the hot dog together. Apparently it's on Twitter. You should see it since you're an influencer.
Yeah, no, I missed that one. I think there's a big business opportunity here of it's really annoying to try to go to Costco in DC.
Yeah, Costco's crazy.
It's nuts.
It's too much.
And it's also dear whoever runs Costco these days, make your parking lots bigger.
Yeah, fair.
You know how many people come. You literally have to scan them in when they come in.
Yeah.
It's not rocket
It's just chaos.
Yeah.
It's the queuing problem times 20.
Maybe a shuttle system. I don't know.
There you go.
Yeah.
The people movers from Dulles.
Yeah, that'd be a great reuse of the people movers for whenever those get retired.
Yeah. Hopefully tomorrow.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah.
You guys heard of tunnels?
God.
What if there was a tunnel that connected these things?
This rocked. Thank you, as always. Huge fan. Excited to continue to watch what you guys are building over there. It's an unbelievable team. And thanks for stopping by.
Of course, man.
Thanks, everybody. Cheers.